During my time at university, I got to know someone. He was just a friend. I mean, he wasn't really a close friend. He was a course mate, to be precise. And one time, me and him even arm wrestled at a party one time. It was intense and fun. You know, alcohol, testosterone, yeah. You know how that goes. But I didn't really know him intimately. So one time I met this guy in the club, and he just seemed a little bit troubled. I picked up on that energy quite quickly, but then I had a different mission in my mind that night, so I sort of brushed it off. Me and him stood there after greeting each other. We stood there for approximately 45 seconds. It was a very long and awkward 45 seconds because we weren't on the same frequency. Our vibrations were different. I quickly then said, okay, look, mate, I'm gonna see you later. I'm gonna shoot off, find some people. And then a week later, I heard that the same guy committed suicide. Now, you can imagine the guilt I felt, and still feel a little bit, for not being able to say, oh, mate, should we get drinks and go outside and have a chat? Something like that, But I didn't, and that haunted me for a time. But I have to forgive myself at some point, I suppose. Now, I share that story to say this. If you see someone, or you can tell that someone is probably going through a tough time, don't just ignore it. Because partially, the guilt for me comes from wondering whether if I had poked my nose into his business a little bit, would that have influenced his decision making or changed his mood or just planted a seed or something? Because at times you never know. You can say something to someone that helps them process something or make different choices. I've been reading a book called The Love for Imperfect Things. And there's a quote in there that says, if you can't find someone to be there for you or be a crutch during hard times or just have your back, do your best to become that for someone else. I'm paraphrasing, but that is the gist of the comment. And in some ways, I suppose that's what I'm doing here with this podcast. I'm trying to be that for someone else, to atone, for the error that I made. It wasn't an error. It was just my behavior at the time. And I think everyone should be able to look at themselves and reflect on the way they behave towards others and the way they treated others, because that's going to help us grow. I suppose that's a long-winded way of introducing this podcast, and also to give some context on the title. I firmly believe that if you really wish to, because no one is coming to save you, or no one is coming to save me, but we can try and help ourselves, and which I hope some people will by listening to this. Even if it's just one person, my goal would have been reached in some ways, because if that one person listens and thinks to themselves, oh, let me stop expecting and start serving other people. All right, I'll give you some context. So I was listening to Jordan Peterson recently. He gave a speech at a graduation, and I think it's titled Crossroads. And in the speech, he gives an example of this woman who is so damaged mentally and emotionally because of her past and her childhood, etc. And this woman is also not very intelligent. He says she's the bottom of the 10%, quote unquote, intellectually. So that just makes life quite difficult. But the amazing thing that he says about this woman is she used to be in a psychiatric hospital and she was an outpatient, but she used to come back to the hospital with a dog that she adopted, one of those stray dogs. to find someone who is worse off than her so they can go on a walk. How amazing is that? Such a pure intention, not out for self, but out to help someone else feel better. And I think that's the step that most of us should be taking. I find it myself when I help my friends during a tough time. I feel so much better that I've listened to them. And because sometimes you don't have to give advice, sometimes all you have to do is just listen. So that's the behavior that comes into my mind when I talk about being in service to others or serving others, giving yourself to the cause, because giving is better than receiving. And when you give, you're basically starting the process for receiving. I think it was Jim Rohn who said that. And it's so true. And you don't have to give with the expectation that you're going to get something back. You're just giving. And you listening to someone, you being there, being present, you're giving someone an outlet to vent, to share with you. And remember, when you listen to someone while they're sharing, that person is also going to want to listen to you as well without any interruptions. See, that's a process. You've given and now you're getting as well an outlet to vent. And to be honest with you, if you're speaking to someone and they don't give you an opportunity to share and they don't listen to you, that could be just one of the signals that maybe that person is just not at the level where they can meet you to listen to you. Or sometimes it could just be as simple as the person is just an energy vampire. You shouldn't just be an outlet for negative energy. There's a difference there. And that difference needs to be recognized. And if it's just not serving you, you cut it off. Because most people only complain, but they don't get better. Whereas if you're listening to someone going through a certain situation, they'll listen, and next time you're having a different conversation, it might have hints of the previous situation because it hasn't completely disappeared. But I suggest watch the progress, watch the person getting better, watch the person having a different perspective. And this also gives you a different perspective as you help them, because surely they would have to listen to you, not because you've shared, but because you've built trust. You've displayed some vulnerability, and that person is also being vulnerable, sharing with you. So when both of you are in that space, there's a lot of respect and kindness. I know it might sound a bit contradictory or hypocritical to say if you're giving and listening to others and maybe there's an underlying expectation that the other person is going to reciprocate. No, this could be a distinguishing factor between the people who call themselves friends around you or the people that you've surrounded yourself with. Because if you've surrounded yourself with people who call themselves friends and that they have your back, when all they do is just offload, but they never listen to you, they vent, but when it's time for you to share, it's either they're on their phones or they're not paying attention, or they're just saying is yeah, I hear you, and not really being engaged and present. So this could be a distinguishing factor between you just listening to someone else, not expecting anything, and if that person reciprocates, amazing, right? And if that person asks about you. But when it comes to friends, other men who are meant to be there for you, and friends don't necessarily have to be just men, it could be women as well. But this is one of the distinguishing factors in my opinion. And that's when you have to set boundaries and know how far you can go with that person, and know that if that's draining you, they're not there for you. They just use you to just complain and bring you down, because there's a difference between complaining and sharing. Very thin line as well, because it's pretty much the same thing, just maybe the other one has a bit of and a negative intent to it, and maybe a sprinkle of laziness. So if this relationship is taken from you, I would suggest you step back, reassess, and set some boundaries. Make them firmly clear. Because if you don't set boundaries, others will set them for you. And that's going to be really uncomfortable. So what you want to do, set boundaries, my friends, and protect your energy by any means necessary. So in preparation for this episode, I did a bit of research into suicide. Now, whether my research is limited or not, that's open to interpretation, but regardless, I did. So I came across a pattern that you may or may not have heard before, but it surprised me really because I didn't expect to find something like that. And what surprised me is probably something that most of you know. I think I'm late to the party. I'm usually late to the party. If you ask my friends, they know, but fashionably late if I do say so myself. But anyway, in this context, so starting with the UK, 11% of the suicides were male, with females only accounting for 4%. Canada had 17% males, females only accounting for 6%. The USA, 25% male, females 7%. And with Russia, a whopping 43% rate for males and females only accounting for 9%. Now, you're starting to see a trend here, right? I mean, I'm sure you've picked it up already. And last on my list, because I can bore you with stats all day long, Lesotho, 116% males, females accounting for only 30%. So if you know your geography, you can tell that those 4 countries that I listed are from different continents, but the trend is the same. Men all over the world have the highest rate of suicide compared to women. I mean, granted, Lesotho is it's a very small little country surrounded by South Africa. Population 2 million, but still, the numbers are unbelievable. What are we missing as men that leads us to do this to ourselves? Now, it will be helpful to figure this out in one go, but obviously that's impossible. And I'm not going to pretend as if I have all the answers to the difficult questions, but it makes you think, what's happening in the male culture that leads us to commit suicide all around the world? But I think it has so much to do with the expectations, the get muscles, get a house, get a good job. And these days, most people are setting out to be nomads, entrepreneurs. And I'm somewhat of a hypocrite myself, because here I am sitting here recording a podcast hoping to reach so many people. But it's the expectations. We need to take that off ourselves. We need to stop placing expectations on ourselves that damage us, that make us feel that we're behind in life, that because you're not dating the supermodel, you're not the man, or because you're not driving a fancy car or have a house or have millions in your bank account and somehow you're insignificant. Not everyone's goals align. Some people don't want to be millionaires. For example, I don't want a Bugatti. Even if I won $1 billion tomorrow, I will never buy a Bugatti. I think it's obnoxious, And I'm not the only one who feels that way. There are some people who don't want the flashy things, and success means different things to different people. For instance, a drug addict, or for example, a crackhead, could define success as getting enough money to score a high that day. That's success for him, and that's his life. And I'm not saying, that's the goal, but I'm just trying to give you an example here. Because if that person's success is gathering enough money to get themselves a high, then that's success, and they live like that, right? So have clear definitions of what success is to you. Some people want to go and live out in the woods and lower their carbon footprint. That could be you, and that's okay. Success doesn't have to be grandiose and flashy. It could be something meaningful to you and your family. At a certain point, it stops being about you and starts being about other people. Are they gonna see me? Will they notice this big car that I just bought, or this big house? That's fine, but if your definition of success is based on other people's perception, you're gonna be exhausted, because people are gonna be always, why don't you have that? Oh, why don't you have this? So have clear definitions of what success is to you, so you can have a healthy relationship with yourself. So on this last point, I'd like to link it back to the title, which is, who do you call? I think you can call anybody. Anybody. You can call anybody you feel like calling. And that's the beauty of it. You can download apps like Clubhouse, Wisdom. These apps, you can speak to anybody about anything that you feel, especially mental health. The communities there are amazing. You've heard me name dropping throughout this episode. I'm not doing that to flex my intellectual muscles, because they're not that big to begin with. I'm doing that so if you're listening and you're interested, you can go and find those people. If you don't have male role models in your life, maybe your father is absent and wasn't there in your childhood, you can find yourself some male figures online who are pushing a healthy agenda, things that are realistic, principles, being in touch with your emotions, being open to others, all of that good stuff. But I digress. So, you can call free hotlines or helplines for mental health. There's always someone out there willing to listen. And speaking of hotlines, at university I volunteered for a hotline called Night Owls. I mean, the name is self-explanatory, but it was definitely that. We would stay up until around 6 a.m. and then would go home after. The hotline was designed for students who might be walking home from a night out, feeling a little bit edgy, or someone who's just maybe at the library and they're feeling a little bit stressed out, or anyone who wanted to speak to someone who they didn't know because it was anonymous. So I joined for this initially just to improve my CV and to look good for the employers. But now with hindsight, I'm realizing that I'm that sort of person. I'm trying to help. I'm always trying to serve. And this is one of the things I'm going to lean into that as a person and just go for it. I do want to help. That's why I'm recording this podcast, that hopefully someone would listen to this and hopefully we can drive down the numbers. I'm not going to drive down all the numbers in one go. I'm not naive to think so, but if I can help somehow, if I can lay on my deathbed and think to myself, I tried. I recorded a podcast. I did what I could to reach people, to try and steer men in the right direction. I would have fulfilled, I guess, a part of my purpose. So in closing, I'd say, do your part as well. Like I mentioned before with the examples, and just try to also be there for others, and you'll be surprised that other people will be there for you. And don't ever think that you're bothering people by approaching them, because that's one of the things that stop us, feeling like we're going to bother people, because you'll be surprised. People are actually happy to be used in that sense. People, if someone feels that you trust them enough to share with them, they'll also feel good about themselves. And reality is, people love it when we share with them. People love it when we're vulnerable, especially us men. That's why I believe females have So many groups, the yoga groups, the brunch, this and that, and because they're always sharing and they're always vulnerable with each other. Not saying that men don't do that, but on a massive scale, there seems to be a lack of vulnerability. Just being able to say, look, mate, I'm feeling a little bit rough. I have these doubts in my mind. I have these thoughts. I feel like a loser and things like that, instead of trying to keep up with people who probably don't even notice you, but thinking in our heads that I'm keeping up with the trends. I'm up to date. Up to date with what? The only thing you need to be up to date with is how you feel and yourself. Stop updating your apps and updating your wardrobe when you haven't really checked in with your inner child. Come on, boys, we can do this. We can change the narrative because it's up to us. No one is going to do it for us. So, watch what you listen to and what you're scrolling on social media, and find someone to help. Just one person. It's been scientifically proven that helping someone else releases chemicals in our brain that make us feel good, genuine high. Why would you not want to feel that? So if you know someone who you think might benefit from this, share this with them, or take those steps that I've mentioned. Do your best to be there for others and you'll be surprised. They'll be there for you. Thank you for listening. I hope so many men hear this, because we need more men to heal so we can change the world. Bye-bye.